Okay, I think we're good to go. So thank you once again, everyone, for joining today's virtual session. My name is Frazier Martins, and I'm your host for today. So in today's competitive marketplace, providing an exceptional customer experience is more important than ever. However, as the demand for personalized experiences continues to increase, so do the costs associated with delivering them. According to recent industry research, 82% of customers expect a personalized experience, and 73% are willing to switch to a competitor if they do not receive it. So, in this context, leveraging personalization has become a critical component of delivering exceptional customer experiences in the BFSI industry. With this context, Freshworks powered by AWS, Yext, and the TextLine was pleased to host this panel discussion titled Money Talks, but Personalization Speaks Louder. How financial services can win customers with tailored experiences. It's a promising agenda with an eminent lineup of speakers, and I would like to take this opportunity to welcome and thank everyone for being a part of this virtual session today. We have some very interesting names with us, so let me introduce to you our speakers joining us on the panel today. Colin Crowley is a CX advisor, Freshworks. Hello, Colin. Karen May Ching is GFS ISV sales lead, banking and payments at AWS. Welcome, Karen. Shane Closer is head of industry and general manager, financial services and insurance at Yext. Welcome, Shane. And Julia Carmona Wilkerson is Chief Alliance Officer at TextLine. Hello, Julia. Welcome. Welcome once again to all of you. And if you haven't yet, may I request you to please come on video. Thank you. Before we begin, I'd like to encourage our audience to ask more questions. We request you to type your questions in the questions section, and these will be taken up in the Q&A session. A couple of tips though, we want to know you more, so please mention your name and your company name when you post your question. You can also mention the name of the person you are directing your question to. So let's take a quick look at the flow for today's session, and for that, please refer to the agenda coming up on your screens right now. Lovely. So the first thing we're going to do is do a poll. It's polling time. Your thoughts matter a lot to us. And so we're going to ask you to gear up to participate in that poll, which has come up on your screens now. So there it is. We're looking forward to valuable inputs from all our delegates. So go ahead and feel free to cast in your polls. How likely are you to recommend a financial service provider that offers personalized customer support? And you have your 5 options there. We're going to have the results of that poll on your screens in a short while, so look out for that. In the meanwhile, if you haven't yet, please go ahead and cast in your poll. Okay, there you are. We have the results of the poll, and clearly 9 out of 21 say very likely, 4 out of them say somewhat likely, 2 are neutral, and we got 0 polls for the rest. Lovely. So the polls are done, and we're going to move forward with this. Right then, without further ado, let's begin with the panel discussion. And my first question is to you, Colin and Shane. How personalization has evolved in the BFSI industry over the past few years, and what factors have driven this change? Colin and Shane, I'm going to go with you. Start with you, Colin.
Thank you, Frazier. It's great to be here, everyone. Yeah, I think there are a few different things. So one thing I would kind of point to, generally speaking, is I think the expectation for personalization has increased because the expectation for personalization has increased everywhere and been realized in many other industries. And because people are shopping all over the place, I like to refer to this like ecosystem of expectations that is created. So even though there are certain industries which by their nature, because they deal with more privacy related information as an example, so you see that obviously in finances, you see that in healthcare, etc., that may make personalization more challenging. Nevertheless, people also deal with the Amazons of the world and the Zappos of the world, and you're getting your you're ordering your shoes from them and so forth. And even though personalization can be easier in those companies, it's creating this ecosystem of expectations where consumers are expecting that level of personalization to be reflected in any company with whom they do business, regardless of the organizational or the operational challenges under which certain industries operate. So I think that's one thing, is this ecosystem of expectations is kind of pushing more personalization in the financial space and in the insurance space. I also think a major factor too is that it's possible to personalize things now more than ever before, especially because everything is basically moved online. So people are shopping online and they're doing their banking online, and everything that you're doing online is tracked in some way. So you think of the days when people would just go into a bank. And the extent of their interaction with the bank was going up to a teller, or at the best going to an ATM. There's very limited data you're collecting on your customers when they're navigating your bank. So you basically have transactional information, but you don't know what they're doing when they're in the bank. And maybe they're looking through some of the brochures, and they're looking at one of the brochures that talks about getting a mortgage and so forth. And all that stuff online is tracked. So you have the understanding of how a customer is navigating your website or navigating your app, and you see that they go to a page where they were looking at information about a mortgage. Maybe you can reach out to them proactively, or kind of tailor some of your responses if they engage with customer support with that information. So because all this information is being tracked, it's creating a world where you can personalize the customer experience more than ever before. I'd also kind of jump in and say the concept of customer experience is also something which is unique, because a lot of the personalization occurs in the experience getting to the end product or the end service. So where you're storing your money is one thing, but the whole experience that you encounter dealing with customer support or getting to that place where you're depositing your money or withdrawing your money, more and more people appreciate the centrality of the experience, the journey getting to a product or getting to a service, and what role that plays in customer loyalty. And again, that's because we have all these data points that can showcase how different experiences that customers have in that journey can impact their loyalty. In terms of more situational things, I think like COVID made a big deal in terms of the rise of personalization, because it did force so many customers to go online and create a much larger ecosystem of data. And of course, you have the rise of conversational engagement with more and more people living on their phones as well, which has kind of changed the nature of what customers expect. They expect for a business, any business, to be there on their schedule and not on the business's schedule. And then you have a rising younger generation of consumers as well that are more used to dealing in the conversational space and are growing up in a world where they're used to having everything be more personalized. So I think those are all things that are more kind of topical reasons why you see this change.
Lovely thoughts to begin this conversation. Thanks, Colin. Shane, what do you have in mind?
Yeah, thanks, Fraser. And that was good, Colin. So Colin talked about a few things. One is consumer expectations, right? So we're all engaged in Amazon, Google, Facebook. And so that's created this rising expectations that consumers have that they're now placing on other industries, specifically healthcare, financial services, a lot of the regulated ones. The number two is this, democracy of like IT. And so what we've really seen is that it used to be reserved for a lot of the, the digital elites out there that we all think about. But now technology is much easier to attain for the enterprise. Large language models we've seen with GPT. We've seen a lot of the, data storage, compute power is so much cheaper than it used to be. And so but what we really need to look at is we need to understand some of the business pressures, and it's different for every single sub industry within financial services. So, banking, very different from wealth management, very different from institutional, mortgage, insurance, property casualty, and life. And so if we just take one of those industries, let's take banking. What we're seeing is this, like, how do we take service out of the business model and move that online? So things like when I acquire a credit card, actually the biggest cost is getting people to activate that credit card. So we could start to think of all of these opportunities that we have with clients to influence behavior, to get them to activate your credit card, saying, hey, you've logged into online banking. By the way, we noticed you signed up for this travel card. You get 10,000 miles on, say, Delta with your first $1,000 purchase. And that continuously reminder and convenience, I think, is really in the servicing side where personalization is getting amplified. specifically for financial services. But it's different from acquisition to brand awareness to servicing. There's many different use cases, and sometimes personalization is a buzzword that's used, overreachingly.
Lovely. I like the way you ended that, saying personalization is the buzzword. Indeed, it is. But then, along with personalization, there is always some limitations. And I want to take this forward by presenting a little scenario, and also want to bring in Karen and Julia into the conversation. So we have this scenario that I'm going to, just present right now. So uh, there was a lady, Jane, and she was hesitant to try a new financial service. Their seamless communication through various channels, including social media, won her over. However, as the institution grew and served more customers, Jane noticed some cracks in the facade. So the first challenge was she found that it was harder to get in touch with her preferred advisor, and she wasn't sure who to contact when she had questions or concern. And the second challenge was she noticed that some of the personalized advice she'd received earlier didn't always consider all the relevant factors, such as changes in her income, her expenses, etc. So my question then is, based on this scenario, how can financial services balance personalization while managing customer expectations and operational costs to keep loyal customers like Jane satisfied? As our panelists, can you tell us what is the reason behind Jane's challenges, and what would be the missing pieces? If I can start with Julia this time.
So what we see here glaringly is that Jane initially started the conversations on social with that friendly, personal communication, relationship building, and then, it somewhat fizzled out and she was left unsure of where to go, or, if her person was still reachable. And, to us as a solution provider, this comes down to adopting tools that can scale with your customer's journey, and with your business, and as that grows. So, yes, it's great if you're DMing and getting someone on the hook, but then once they are invested in you and your services or your product, it's important that you are consistent with that communication level. And, for us, SMS, as we've discussed, is such a prevalent form of communication. Everyone has their phones by their side, and it's about leveraging all of these new tools, texting and text line being one of them, that can really empower your team to do so. So that one-on-one conversation that got Jane on the hook remains throughout. And that's not just reminding the person that was initially speaking with her to keep speaking with Jane and make sure she's taken care of, but it's making sure that that agent is equipped to do so. So that could be as simple as engaging with a texting tool that sends automated text messages to Jane, reminders for Jane to do certain things, or check-ins. It could be setting out of office notes so that when Jane texts in, she gets a response that says, your person is out right now and when will they be back, or who's a backup person that she can reach. So, it's not pulling that bait and switch where you originally think you have this tight personal bond and then it fades away, but remaining consistent and using the tools that allow you to do that.
Lovely, Julia. Thanks for that. Karen, can I invite you into the conversation?
Sure, thank you. I think those are very valid points that Julia have pointed out, and two things that resonate to me, right, across the three challenges that Jane has. One is really how the data is being used currently by your provider, right? Because the data, the way, financial services right now, even today, right, with the advent of what Shane and Colin have saying with the trends that we have right now, we still use data to manage risk. This needs to change because this is sort of giving you more reactive rather than a proactive approach on how you would serve your customer and how you would provide that customer experience. So in AWS, we always have this thought leadership in mind to drive to our customers that how can we use data as an asset in different channels, in the different omni channels that we are going to manage and help our customers really understand how that data is going to feed in and help them in times of whether they have an inquiry on a product, whether this product is a right fit for them, the aspect of real-time access to that. And on the flip side, how do we now innovate across, right, in real time? So we call it the innovation at scale and innovation at velocity. Because these real-time inputs and insights drive personalization. So number one, for example, if Jane, depends which segment she is in, if she have used, let's say, SMS or mobile for that matter, right? How can we, even if it's a chatbot or an AI answering to her, how can we personalize that service to Jane? And the only way we can hyper personalize that further is what is the data that is feeding in through under the profile of Jane, right? Whether Jane, what are the right products? What are the key questions? What are the key drivers for Jane? And what are the causal opportunities that we have, or what are her concerns? Now, if we have an option to do a face-to-face discussion, remember, when you're selling financial services, there's an aspect of risk and security there on part of the customer, right? So necessary, chat would be good. However, face-to-face discussion would matter. Would it be on video, or would it be if there's a physical office or a branch that I can go to and discuss? So it's all about data. As most enterprises right now use this as a mechanism, as an asset, and at the same time, it drives innovation to innovate the product that's specifically viable for Jane.
Lovely. Colin, your thoughts on what is the reason behind Jane's challenges, and what can we do to make her happy?
Definitely echo some of what Karen and Julia said. I'd say the first challenge is definitely on the data front, and I would just kind of add to that by saying sort of what Julia was talking about in terms of consistency of customer support, is that you also need consistency of data gathering, since I think some companies are good at getting a lot of data upfront from customers as part of that onboarding process, but don't consistently engage customers to appreciate the fact that the customer situation changes over time, especially when you're looking at a longer term relationship. So being just as diligent, making sure you're engaging with customers and getting new data coming into the system so you're not operating on old data is one component. So there's not a system that's perhaps good enough at being able to re-engage Jane. The second thing I would say is the lack of proactivity, speaking of which. So not only is she having difficulty getting in touch with a financial advisor after signing up, but it doesn't sound like there's much proactive outreach going on at scale to engage Jane proactively. So that in and of itself is a challenge, especially now that there are more and more technologies that can automate the process of outbound communications, as has been said, and that can help to solve the data problem, because some of the proactive engagement with Jane would probably enable her to have a conversation, even if it's with a bot. Or even if it's just reminding her to go into her account and update certain things, where now you have data being fed back into the system that could make the data more up to date, so Jane is able to get more personalized and relevant service. The last thing I'll say too is I think the fact that she's having difficulty getting in touch with a financial advisor also indicates there could be organizational challenges at the company when it comes to managing their workforce, because conversational engagement is great when you use SMS or WhatsApp or social media, but it can also be challenging for companies to make a transition into those spaces if they're not historically used to that. Just like it can be very challenging for companies to embrace chatbot technology if they don't have historical knowledge of how to set up chatbots, and they're very cognizant of the customer experience, so they don't want to impact the customer experience, especially in the financial space where you're dealing with a lot of sensitive information. The company may be even more hesitant to adopt chatbots and other self-service tools. So there could be some challenges with change management there that the company is going through. If you had, let's say, like a software provider that provided a more handheld experience to help them kind of enter into the chatbot space, maybe they'd be able to utilize more chatbot technology and more high-powered self-service technology to free up their agents and their advisors, so that some of the lower level issues that they're probably dealing with are otherwise handled through other channels, and that frees up those people to be able to engage with Jane more, so when she does engage with them through these conversational channels, they're available. And you can complement that with also AI-powered technology on the back end, like we see with ChatGPT now. So AI-powered technology that in real time can help financial advisors or any sort of customer support specialists on the front lines engage with customers at scale and balance multiple conversations simultaneously. So it could be 3, 4, 5 conversations because you have like a chat bot on the back end that's advising those advisors or those agents as to phrasing recommendations or auto-correcting what they're typing, or sometimes correcting it for professionalism, or also recommending next best actions if they're trying to walk Jane through certain workflows. So there's a lot that can be done on the technology front, but also ways that you can kind of help companies ease into these new technologies where they can be kind of intimidating at first glance to embrace.
Lovely. Thanks, Colin. I like the fact that you mentioned proactiveness and how important that is, for someone like Jane. Shane, your thoughts?
So it's kind of funny. Honestly, one of the challenges for wealth management, it's the hardest industry to do personalization in, because a lot of the regulations. So you have hypothetical performance with the new November 4th law. We have books and records that was put in place where everything needs to be archived. We need to make sure we can't use promissory language. There's a lot of interpretation around all these different regulations that are happening in the industry, but there's such a rich opportunity if you can establish some of the necessary, what's called control and supervision around data, and then use that information in a way that you can empower the financial advisor specifically in this journey, because that's really the person that knows their client best. Is I'm seeing in the past, there used to be this perception of, let's go completely robo and it'll know everything about our customers. And robo is just 100% digital for those that aren't familiar with that. And so we haven't really seen that take off like, some of the expectations were. But now what we're seeing is really how technology is empowering financial professionals to have conversations with their clients at scale. So when is the time that they need to reach out to a client? Well, maybe something shifted in their portfolio. Right? What is the kind of preference that the client has or the investor has for communication, in person, virtual, email? So there's just a lot of different dynamics coming into personalization. Sometimes it's like e-commerce where it's completely personalizing a shopping cart experience. Other times, a lot of times in financial services, it's how do we personalize this the servicing and planning that we have, financial planning with clients, but really going through those financial professionals versus around them.
Lovely. Interesting, isn't it, the kind of role technology can play in personalizing services? Which brings me to our third question for today, and that's what are the key strategies for delivering exceptional customer experiences in the BFSI industry? And I'm going to start with you, Shane, in no particular order.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so I've worked on a lot of personalization strategies. So, used to be at Accenture, where we used to lead a lot of strategy for companies. One of the first and most important rules of any personalization strategy is to know who are your most important customers. So there's always this Pareto rule, where 20% of your customers drive 80% of your revenue or 80% of your profit. You should understand that, and you should understand are these meaningful touch points for them, which is often different. And then there's this other kind of saying in the industry that 5 to 10% of our customers today will generate 85% of our revenue in the future. So we have to know who our customers are now, and we have to know who are these important demographics in the industry. So one of them, women heads of household for financial services. It's a $30 trillion demographic. I guess us guys are kind of dying off a little bit early. So how do we really care for this rising demographic that's critical for wealth management? And so there's a few things. One is you want to start to understand zero-party data. So how can we have them tailor their needs to how they like to be communicated again? When do they like to be communicated? The style. And people are looking for different types of relationships. It doesn't matter how many assets you have. I could have $2 million in assets or 100,000. And people have what's called self-guided versus managed relationships that they want out there. So somebody with a lot of money might want to be self-guided, but they just might want to be able to check in with a financial advisor to make sure they don't make a stupid mistake. So being able to use zero-party data to explicitly get these preferences from consumers and then craft personalization strategies around what we call these moments that matter, I think is often kind of the critical foundation to get going. Yeah.
Lovely. Karen, if I can bring you in, key strategies to deliver exceptional customer service in the BFSI industry.
Sure. For me is two things, right? How do you use data to gain a more holistic understanding of the customer? That's quite important. Even, in I know the pain that Shane is saying on wealth management. I understand that. I come from that space, right? There's not really a true answer for the customer there. So the customer is always doubting. But the thing is, how would you use the data that you have to be able to influence the customer to make the right decisions at the right time they need it? The second one is you provide a contextualized and personalized offer. So this is quite broad, right? However, if you think of, even to myself right now, if I go on mobile banking, I want answers to me at the moment I need them. I don't want to delay for an hour. I want answers now, right? So how does that help FSIs to, or financial institutions to innovate, right? This is managing the digital user engagement that you have, the omni-channel that you have, and maximizing that. Whatever you churn from that, because we have choices right now. We have a lot of choice, right? There's a lot of innovation behind it. So we need to make sure it's what is right in this context. For example, what is right for Jane, right? What is right for Jane and what will help Jane, and how can we make the whole mechanism proactive for Jane? Second, the third one I would say is, simplify, right? We have a principle in Amazon or in AWS. We say you invent and simplify. Easy to say, hard to do. However, can be done by, simply adding offering and products and services based on customer historical interactions with the bank or any third party. Because, for example, if you have embedded finance and open banking right now, there's a wealth of information about the customer behavior that you can get, right? Gone are the days that you segment them on segment A, high tier. I think that's becoming flatter right now, right? Because each customer right now has the propensity to choose the products that are available to them. In fact, here in the UK, you can actually switch whenever you like, from one bank to the other, for another financial institution to another, whatever service, right? Based on the historical data that you're getting, how can you simplify the journey for Jane? It's not frictionless. I'm not going to talk about seamless and frictionless, but simplifying that journey for her, right? And then coupled with that is assisting a customer via their preferred channel for onboarding and ongoing support, right? We need to respect what the customer is. Customer obsession is one thing here. So let's not be more prescriptive, but rather proactive in that sense. And then we should always guide our customers towards personalized financial wellness goals, right? So we've seen this. We've got a lot of errors in the financial institution, right? There is a system, there is a structure, but at the end of the day, for the benefit of our customers, we should always preach financial wellness and goals for them. So that in other words, you become empathetic more. Your approach to personalization is more empathetic rather than prescriptive.
Lovely. Thanks, Karen. I like that line, invent and simplify. Easier said than done. Colin, I can see you smiling. I want to bring you into this conversation. Your thoughts?
Yes, I like that as well. Yeah, a few things on my end. So one thing is because the omni-channel approach, I definitely think is an important component of delivering an exceptional experience from both angles. So it's a positive thing from the customer angle, where what you're basically telling customers is that you're available when it's convenient for them and not when it's convenient for you, and that's an entirely different experience for customers. But also on the back end, it provides you with a lot more power if you use an omni-channel approach, especially with one software provider, where all your telephony, all your emails, all your SMS, all your WhatsApp messages, all these things, social media included, are coming into one place. So you have a full view of the customer's contact history, or you may even use a suite of products like, we have sales and marketing software at Freshworks alongside customer support platforms. So you may even use sales and marketing software that is integrated with your customer support software. So you can literally track customers even before they're your customers and have that full history in one place. So that provides a lot of opportunities to kind of use that information and mine all the data you get from that, like all the messages that your customers send over email or through chat conversations. So it provides you with a lot of power to have that in one place that you can take action on it to help personalize the experience better, as well as make it a better experience for customers. The second thing I would say is making sure that you're integrating your it could be your customer data platform or your order management system or your account management system or whatever it is with the tool that you are using to power your customer engagement, because that provides so many more opportunities to be able to personalize the customer support experience. So if you know who your customers are, not only does that empower agents to be able to personalize how they deal with customers, but it also empowers you to route customer inquiries in much more intricate ways and make better use of the people you have in your organization. So if someone fits a certain segmentation tier as a customer, let's say they go right off to a more high profile financial advisor versus someone who has a more lower level concern who goes off to this group of agents over here. So it empowers you to specialize people within your organization so that you're using the people in your employ in a smarter and in a more streamlined way. And that's all dependent on getting customer information into your customer support platform so that you can route contacts intelligently. Another thing we already kind of chatted about is different technology opportunities. So we talked about AI, so different opportunities in terms of zero contact resolution using chatbots as one example to kind of siphon off some of the lower level issues. So you're using your actual human beings for more intricate types of interactions that require higher levels of empathy, like Karen was saying. It doesn't put as much stress on those people on the front lines because they're not buried under contacts. So chatbots or special opportunities for AI-powered federated search in your contact center or in your FAQ as an example. Or you think of, again, those agent assist technologies on the back end that assist your agents or advisors in real time as they navigate through customer conversations, and even like basic robotic process automation. So building like little bots that can exist in your customer support platform so that a process which may normally take 40 clicks to go through and make some sort of change to a customer's account is something that you can press a button and all those 40 clicks are taken care of for you. And that can really shave off a lot of time spent needlessly on administrative tasks. The very last thing I'll mention is just kind of doubling down on the whole thing of conversational engagement again, which it tends to have higher customer satisfaction associated with conversational channels. And again, by conversational, I mean everything from like live chat to SMS to WhatsApp to social media. So those channels inherently tend to have higher customer satisfaction. And they have a kind of a unique place, I would say, especially in the financial space, where people are not used to getting conversational support from financial institutions. So people tend to think and stereotype financial experiences as being clunkier and more legacy in terms of the systems used. So being able to really surprise and delight customers by having a vibrant conversational experience can be one way to really deliver a delightful experience, and opens up all these opportunities to use these new chatbot and AI technologies that are most prominent in conversational channels.
Lovely. Thanks, Colin. Julia, if I may bring you to express your thoughts on this one. A lot's been said by Shane and Karen and Colin, of course.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to be repetitive because my panelists said it perfectly. The only thing I'll just add that Colin brought up, which, kind of brought me back to my early days of learning about TextLine, was the surprise and delight. But in this case, it's actually of having someone on the other end of that text and it not being a bot. And that's when it comes to those, more personal interactions that are really meaningful to people when they get a response. And like the Jane situation, they know your salary, they know a specific problem you had a month ago because they have all that data in your omni-channel solution, and they're there to work you through the product. I mean, that's when we get a lot of like wow responses from our customers using TextLine. And then the last thing I'll say is just the power of follow-up and how we can do that now with surveys and being proactive, as my panelists have discussed. But just going out there and getting feedback from your customers in really efficient ways is a very powerful tool.
Okay, lovely. Thanks, Julia, for your thoughts. Before I can go to the next question, I'm just being told that we have to run that poll up once again because of a technical glitch that occurred while we ran it earlier. So we're going to quickly run that poll one more time, and I'm going to request all our attendees to please go ahead and cast in your vote. There it is. How likely are you to recommend a financial service provider that offers personalized customer support? Very likely, somewhat likely, neutral, somewhat unlikely, or very unlikely. So go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, and please cast in your vote. Okay, we're into the last 5-10 seconds of the poll, and we should have the results very soon. Thank you very much, all who participated. We're going to see the results of that poll shortly. Okay, there it is. Very likely 4 out of 21, somewhat likely 2. Just 1 for neutral, somewhat unlikely, very unlikely, got blank. 14 didn't answer. Okay, that's very strange. I hope this is not another technical glitch. But be that as it may, I'm going to quickly move on to the next question. And this time I'm going to ask the panelists to share any case studies or examples of successful personalization strategies in the BFSI industry that may have led to significant improvements in customer experience and satisfaction. Karen, if I can start with you this time.
Share, I mean, we've invited, for example, NatWest Group many times on stage together with some of our partners on how they develop their customer experience through the power of a data, right? So the problem that we're trying to solve is the bank wanted to provide an exceptional customer service while, remaining in line with regulatory obligations, right? But they needed a more secure and scalable solution to implement machine learning workloads. So this is what we've said earlier on the access to data, how we would make it secure for our customers and make sure that data is safe with us, right? Or with the bank, and which previously, sometimes led to data silos and long lead times to respond to the customer. So what we've done with NatWest is they chose to develop a series of machine learning projects and environment templates using AWS services to derive new insights. So for example, we started first with enabling their development team to understand how they can train those machine learning automatically that saves them time, and how we knock down the silos on the data. The impact is very, by just simply unlocking enablement and unlocking those silos for data. You don't need a big bang approach, but the impact was quite huge. NatWest was able to use a standardized and secure solution to implement and, put ML workloads on production on AWS. This is not us dictating to them the templates, but this is via flexible templates that they have built, right, on AWS. And this have reduced time to deliver the best products and services to the customer. So for example, if they are delivering a product for a typical bank, probably 10 to 15 days, they have cut this significantly by 40 to 50%, right? And it continues to improve. And this use case for NatWest Group is continuing to scale, given that right now, if you have heard, right, we've expanded our AI ML service into the incorporating the chat GPT would help you be more interactive and faster in developing and training those machine learning workloads that you have. Those some this quite a good story to share to our customer on how data have provided that customer experience and how that touched the omni-channel to machine learning.
Lovely. Shane?
Yeah, so I'd love to. So Yux it has 850 financial services clients. 9 out of 10 of the top banks, but all the way down to really small kind of credit unions and banks. Two case studies that are really cool is First Financial and Dime Credit Union. What we've really seen is Yux is powering search, and we are introducing what's called semantic search. So it's not just keyword. So it understands concepts that might not even be in a word on a page. And we think of the vernacular that people can ask as they ask questions. I want to find a financial advisor, a financial consultant, financial guru. We all have our different way of asking these questions. And that's an area where semantic search comes in. But we've seen a 312 adoption of search for Dime Community Bank and a 225% improvement in First Financial Bank. But what was really cool out of that is the kind of click through and engagement rates from 27 to 35, depending on the bank. And so as we start to offer these more intelligent experiences, we see adoption go up, we see costs go down. We can think of a cost for an in-person transaction, which is typically about like $26. And then as we start to go to a call center, you'll see about $6 on average. We're going to do it at 99 cents online. So there's huge cost savings for a lot of these financial organizations, but the biggest benefit is obviously customer retention, and a lot of this upselling. Right, a wealth product is $2,000. A mortgage products fluctuates every month these days, but it's generally around $900. And so these are huge opportunities for revenue and profitability that they can drive. And then what's even cooler about that is the kind of engagement from customers, right? They actually prefer this over other kind of channels because a lot of the points that we've heard from Karen and Julia and Colin, which is about providing convenience. No one wants to wait. And so if we can deliver these right experiences with the right messaging and the right information on target, that really has this kind of systemic change and transformation that it can introduce for these organizations.
Lovely. Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Karen. If I can bring this to you, Julia, a nice case study or example that you can share with us.
So a bit less specific, but you can think about texting on the journey of a customer maybe looking to apply for a mortgage for their first home or find a mortgage broker, and they submit their information on a web page, what they're looking to do, basic contact info, and a text fires off to get that first call scheduled. So they're getting an instant response. They have something on the books right away. The process progresses and they're sending, critical time-sensitive information to their mortgage broker, or being told, you need to call me right away because something is very important. And we know that texting has the highest open rate. It has the highest response rate. So it's just a really efficient way to communicate nowadays. And then, the ability to use MMS, PDF, so it's not just text anymore. That's been very, very helpful as well. And then finally, payment reminders. So now talking less about the ease of the customer, but more about, the actual institution needing to collect payment, reducing late payments, things like that. Texting, all very helpful.
Yes, it's amazing the kind of reminders you get, when you have to make payments. Yes, thanks, Julia. Colin, your thoughts?
I'll kind of jump in with a few examples here from some of our customers. Because we at Freshworks, we provide a bunch of different technologies and customer employee engagement. So it includes like a full suite of customer support technologies like telephony, email, live chat, et cetera, et cetera. One big customer of ours, PhonePe, is one of the big financial and payment providers in India, has been a customer for a while, and very, very big company with about 300 million registered users, doing business with approximately like 20 million companies in India through PhonePe. And they have like 1.5 billion transactions per month. And so they used our Fresh Chat product because they wanted to bring more conversational support, more live chat support. And they also wanted to try to find ways to deflect some incoming contacts because they noticed there were a large number of kind of tier 1 issues that were like things like inquiries on people's balances and things of that nature that they could otherwise automate. So they were able to isolate hundreds of workflows that they could fully automate. And they were able to put those in our chatbot technology, and they deflect about 80% of incoming contacts through using that chatbot, and very strategically making sure that they're filling those slots and then able to kind of use the people in their customer support organization towards more empathetic ends to deal with kind of higher end issues. We also have a company called Sens, SENS, based out of Argentina, which is an insurance company. And they also made a similar transition into the conversational space from using emails and tickets and so on and so forth. And they adopted WhatsApp as a major communication tool with their customers, especially when it came to proactive notifications. So they used a lot of proactive outreach to customers through WhatsApp to engage, and they were able to change that paradigm so they're not responding to people in hours, but they have about like 30-second response times now through their agents, and we're able to reduce agent onboarding substantially, where they're able to get agents up and running over 24 working hours. So it made it much easier for them to scale as they grew fast as a company. Those are kind of two good examples that kind of, I think, encapsulate that shift to the conversational space and how some of this new technology can be utilized to provide a better agent experience and also a better customer experience as well.
Lovely. Thanks, Colin. Thanks, everyone, for giving us lovely case studies there. So with that, we conclude this part of the panel discussion, and I want to thank all our panelists for your awesome participation. I'm sure our attendees had some key takeaways there. We're moving on to the Q&A session now, and we have a good number of questions from our audiences in the Q&A session, and having a problem of plenty is never a problem, they say. So if you haven't yet shared your questions, please go ahead and share them in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. Our panelists will be happy to answer. Okay, just got to pick up the first of our questions and put it across our panelists. So this one says, I'd like to know more about the role of customer feedback in refining personalization efforts in the BFSI industry. How can institutions effectively gather and use this feedback to improve their services? Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Colin.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll jump in quickly and say, 'cause I think Julia mentioned that before, which I thought was a really great point, that one of the benefits of conversational engagement is to get much higher response rates when you're engaging someone through conversational channels, when you're engaging them here where they live anyway. But yeah, having a robust feedback framework, I think, is really important. And typically the challenge is you don't get very high response rates if you're engaging people over email for surveys and things of that nature. So being able to engage people over conversational channels to get feedback, and it may not even be like a long survey, but it could be press 1 for this, press 2 for this. That can be a great way to get high response rates. So you're trying to mitigate against bias in who's choosing to take the surveys because you're making it so easy. And this is also another area where there's a lot of AI-powered technology that's really interesting out there as well. So there's some like AI-powered surveying tools, and when you get a customer into a survey, the AI-powered technology is able to kind of notice if a customer's like not answering a question very well or very fully, and kind of change the question flow in order to better engage the customer and try to get more out of them. So there's some interesting technologies like that. And the last thing I would say is just making sure you have a way to actually get the feedback. So making sure that you're doing, text analysis on that feedback, and that you're having a team of people looking at it and answering it. So treating feedback as if it were another customer support channel, basically, that your customer support team is handling, and that you have a ready feedback loop with your operations people and product. To make sure there's actually something being done about the feedback, and that it's an important component of what factors into your roadmap or your overall business plans.
Lovely. You want to add to that, Shane?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I typically say there's kind of five ways people are leaving feedback these days, right? So we think of initially the NPS surveys that customers are leaving, CSAT surveys, a lot of first-party surveys, as Colin was talking to. There's a lot of behavioral analytics that we can use in mind. So things like Adobe Analytics, Google Analytics that we'd often track. Where are people going? Where are they leaving? Where are their friction points in these experiences? And let's not forget reviews. So reviews is kind of the new trust signal out there that is is dramatically changing marketing. And to a lot of points, it's about applying analytics to it. So things like sentiment analysis, where you can understand based on the terms that people are using, are they speaking positively or negatively in these large blocks of text that they're leaving comments on. Vector algorithms, which is you can do entity extraction to kind of understand people, product, service, what is it that they're actually talking about. Natural language understanding is really kind of unlocking what has typically been a big blind spot for servicing and marketing in these channels. And I think it's really revolutionizing using all those kind of 5 methods customer experiences. So.
Yeah, and if I could add on to that, right, the points from Colin and Shane is the way we manage feedback and you make it bias for action. It's not just the information that we receive. We need to understand what are we going to do about it, right? Because sometimes, although we say we have sales, marketing, and operations, it's a disjointed organization at the end of the day. And the only time we don't need to wait for a big complaint to happen through that feedback, right? That it's too late for us to regain the trust of our customers. It's quite important that this feedback is used also as mechanisms for us to drive improvement, because sometimes we take it with a grain of salt, and it's a gift for us because it's something that we don't know that we should be knowing, right? So it's part of the customer window that they see that we might be seeing. So it needs to be really more on the execution of what we're going to do with that feedback is quite key.
Lovely. Thanks, Karen. Our next question is, the attendee is asking, as a customer, I'd like to understand how financial institutions measure the success and impact of their personalization efforts on customer satisfaction and business growth. Could you provide some examples or metrics if possible? Julia, would you like to take that one?
Or this kind of feeds into the previous question, but we very simply have surveys that we send via text, and we offer NPS, CSAT, and custom surveys. The exciting point to our NPS and CSAT surveys is that while the beginning of the survey is structured and it's a numeric response, you can tailor the follow-up. So like Karen was saying, what do you do with that information? Well, if it's a 5 stars or a 5 on a CSAT, you can send a link to get a review, and then take Shane's next step and gather more from that review. If it's a 1 or a 2, you can send your calendar link and schedule a call and get more information, put your success team on it, understand why the customer was so upset. So the ability to get feedback and what to do with it is huge these days. It's only developing more and more. So I encourage texting as the medium to start, but there are tons of ways to do it.
Lovely. So this one says, I'm excited about emerging technologies like virtual assistants and augmented reality. How do you envision these technologies shaping the future of personalization in the BFSI industry? Karen, you want to address that one?
So augmented reality, right? There's just one that we can think of and everybody knows about what that is. But at the end of the day, we take it as a tool for learning to design products and services that would better serve to our customers. I think this is a good incubation mechanism that we can use for financial services to create models and how that personal interaction, because sometimes alternate reality seem to be as an escape to what the reality really is, right? So because we can be anybody who we like in that world. But at the end of the day, that's becoming a sense of comfort for most of us. For me, is sort of a line that I would like to draw there, and I hope I won't be quoted on this, is to make sure that what we use it for the benefit for a good cause, right? For a good cause in a sense that it will serve the customer and understand how can we model our products that would best fit and best set them for the future. The second one is, virtual models and something like that is good also for example, if you're designing a product or a service, right? So I think you can infuse right away personalization there in very quick minutes, because I've tested this solution, and by the means of a QR code, you can design something, right? For that exercise, we did design. I'm not a pilot or an engineer at Boeing, but we're able to design a propeller plane the way we like it, right? And then test it. So same with services, right? Because services has an intrinsic value more than an extrinsic value to the customer, right? There's a sense of emotional attachment to it. And we have to make sure that whatever we're building there, it needs to be secured. And not only secured, but really putting the customer at the center of it.
Okay, lovely. Just about time for last couple of questions. This one says, I work for a small BFSI organization, and I'm interested in knowing how we can effectively compete with larger institutions when it comes to personalization and customer experience. Do you have any advice or recommendations? Shane, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think first it just kind of understanding who your competitors are in market and just being a little bit better than them. Being smaller, it's actually a little bit easier to be more nimble in some situations, and cause change where it's a little bit more difficult if you're especially a very large bank with, a brand that you need to kind of factor in. So looking at those reviews, I would say is like number one, what I would do, I would look at some of the competitor reviews. What are they complaining about with my competitors in market, and use that as far as my marketing strategies and other kinds of strategies. So those are things that you can start to do to kind of figure out what are these moments that really matter to customers that you start to use to inform your strategy around personalization. So.
Okay, lovely. Quickly squeeze in one last question. With the growing trend of open banking and API-based financial services, how do you think this will impact personalization and customer experience in the BFSI industry? Colin, you want to shoot at that one?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, generally speaking, kind of factors into the overall moral of the story that we talked about in a few different cases here, where the more data that you can understand about customers, and sometimes customer data isn't even just about your customers per se, but it can be about understanding customers better generally. So you could have like segmentation types, personality archetypes from open source information that you could factor into how you kind of look at your own customers. So the more open data that's out there, and the more ability to kind of meld that data together with data you may have about your customers specifically, just provides more fodder for you to personalize, as long as you have some of the mechanisms in place to be able to do something with that data, which is like the big caveat attached to that. So I think it just kind of factors into the growing abilities for personalization, as long as you have infrastructures capable of being able to do something with that data and use it intelligently. And that's where I would actually say what Shane was saying, that the nimble nature of smaller organizations can actually be a benefit, because it can be harder to embrace new technologies and to embrace data in different ways when you're a large organization than when you're a small organization. Some of these new emerging technologies and the ability to work with data in more nimble ways can actually be one of the advantages smaller organizations have over larger competitors who may find it more difficult to kind of pivot their strategy and their structure and personalize, because there's just a lot more they have to do to create change and movement in their organization.
Lovely. Thanks, Colin. It's been a wonderful, wonderful session. I can see we've spoken so much about technologies, and I just want to share on my part. I got an email the other day saying that my job has been listed as one of those that will go to ChatGPT. So you might have a chatbot talking to you the next time around. But thanks very much, everyone. With this, we bring today's virtual session to a close. It wouldn't have been a success without the active participation of all our esteemed speakers and, of course, all our attendees. I'd like to thank each one of you for taking your time out and being a part of this virtual event today. A special thanks to Freshworks, AWS, Yext, and TextLine for their support to this initiative, without whom this session wouldn't have been possible. So thanks once again, ladies and gentlemen. It was great to be in your company. Have a wonderful day ahead wherever you are. Stay well, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye-bye.